Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Spark crowdfunding webinar number 15. Today we have got a great lineup for you, so hopefully you'll be entertained and impressed by what we've got to show you. But before I introduce you through to Zipp and to Charlie Gleason, I just want to give you a quick update of where we are with the other projects that we've got live at the moment. You hopefully will have seen Descender, who are live on site at the moment. They've just reached their 80% funding, which is fabulous news. Still plenty of days still left to go on their campaign. So they've raised 470,000 of their 600,000 target, which is fabulous news for them. It's a great business. They've made some huge progress in the beta tests that they've done. And I really urge you to go and have a look at the site when you get a chance. Separately, we've had some great coverage in the Irish Times and RTE over the last couple of days. One promoting the Zipp webinar, or the Zipp campaign, but also one promoting Descender, of course, as well. So we've got a lot of new signups from that. Many more investors have come onto the site, and if you're joining us for the first time today, you're very welcome, and hopefully you enjoy it as well. A lot of the investors are giving us great feedback about the simplicity of the investment and how easy it is to actually go through and actually invest in the business. The quality of the startups that we're getting on site is very high, and we're getting great feedback about that. Just to let you know, we are very selective in the businesses that we put up onto the platform. About 1 in 8, 1 in 9 businesses only get through our sifting. And they get on to be live on the site. So we're very selective with that, and hopefully that shows in the quality of the businesses that we're offering you as investors to invest in. Many of the companies are also have been invested by the state as well. Enterprise Ireland, who of course are a semi-state, have invested into many of the businesses that we have live on the site, and Zipp and Descender are examples of those as well. And also with regards to the investment, don't forget, investors, you don't have to pay any commission on the investments that you make with us. It's all for the let's say the 1,000 you put in, you get 1,000 euros worth of shares. And in fact, it's even better than that, because many of the companies that we have on the site are EIS, of course, and you get a 40% tax rebate on that as well. But I want to introduce you to Charlie and to Zipp. So Charlie, if you can put your camera on, please. So this is Charlie. Charlie is the CEO of Zipp. We've been talking to Charlie and the team for a couple of months now, and we've been very impressed with the quality of the team that they have on board with them. And what they've done to date is they've got some remarkable traction, both in the UK and further afield. They're looking to expand here in Ireland, which Charlie will talk about, but also further around in Europe, where into Poland and into Portugal as well. Very professional in what they do. They're in a very high growth sector, and that sector is has got a lot of acquisition going on as well. A lot of consolidation is going on between some of the players there as well, which is obviously an incentive for you as an investor as well. And they've been a pleasure to work with. And so Charlie, a quick introduction to him. Charlie's a BCom graduate from UCD. He's previously worked in asset management and corporate finance. He is currently the founder of the year from UCD 2021, and was listed in the Irish Independent 30 under 30 recently as well in the last couple of months. So Charlie, there you go. That's a bit of an intro for you. So I'll let you take it from here. So if you want to share your slides and introduce yourself to everybody, and I'll go into the background here.
Excellent. Thanks a million, Chris. Really appreciate it. So yeah, first of all, my name is Charlie Gleason, founder and CEO of Zipp. Chris, thanks a million for the introduction. And firstly, I want to thank everyone for taking their lunchtime to have a look at this. And I'm really excited to tell you a little bit more about Zipp and our plans for the future. So let's tuck in. So the problems that we're trying to solve are both congestion and carbon emissions. So from a congestion point of view, 40% of car journeys are less than 2 miles and are therefore avoidable. From a carbon emissions perspective, urban mobility accounts for 40% of all CO2 emissions of road transport. Now, both congestion and carbon emissions are caused by what's known as the last mile problem. Now, in this context, the last mile problem is the difficulty of getting people to and from public transport links and any other journey really between 1 and 5 kilometers. Zipp Mobility can solve this problem. Zipp is a Dublin-based scooter sharing company currently operating all across the UK. Zipp provides a quick and convenient way for people to travel around their city and access existing public transport links without the burden of their own vehicle. So how does the service work? Well, 1, you download the Zipp Mobility app. 2, locate your nearest scooter using the GPS locator on the app. And 3, scan the QR code located on the scooter and ride to your destination. So in just 5 months when we launched, we've seen 60,000 journeys taken on Zipp scooters so far. We estimate that this has replaced around 12,000 car journeys and avoided over 9 tons of carbon emissions from entering the atmosphere. So a great start in just in what has just been a few months. Now, there's plenty of competition in the market. The industry started out in around 2018 with companies like Bird and Lime scaling across the UK. And they saw great growth, but they didn't do it without making a few mistakes along the way. And there's plenty of European competition as well, such as Tier, Dot, Voi, the list goes on, and the industry is expected to be valued at 500 billion by 2030. But I think one thing that's really important to note is that in a lot of cases, we're actually beating these competitors. We've consecutively beaten 15 different scooter sharing companies to secure 3 licenses to launch our business across the UK. And just to put this into a bit of context, Voi, we only had €300,000 when we were tendering last summer. We were up against competitors with 30 million. So we had around 1% of some of our competitors' budgets. As well as this, Bird were the fastest ever company to reach unicorn status, being valued at over $1 billion within 2 months. And we actually have a larger market share than these guys. So phenomenal results coming from a standing start last summer. And I suppose the next question is how are we beating these guys? Well, it's all down to our mission of mobility done right. And we've devised solutions to the industry's biggest problems. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in the 2 years before we actually launched it, I was researching the market, watching the competition, taking their playbook and essentially understanding that what we could do better. Growing our network in the industry and kind of finding these industry's biggest problems, we've come up with solutions to them. And that's where Zipp differentiates from the competition. So I'll dig into these in a little bit more detail now. The first problem that we're trying to solve is the issues with the gig economy. Now, what this means is most of our competitors use gig economy employees or outsourced operations to charge and redistribute the scooters. This means they get independent contractors to go out at night, collect the scooters, bring them back to their homes, charge them overnight, and redistribute them the next day. So this allows these companies to scale very quickly, but again, has a few problems. 1, leads to massive cash burn, rendering all of these companies unprofitable. The gig economy workers have no employment rights or no economic certainty. Gig economy workers typically use cars to charge and redistribute the scooters, which negates any potential positive environmental impacts of electric scooters. So what do we do differently? Well, we operate a centralized charging model with swappable batteries. This is where we have one centralized warehouse to charge and redistribute the scooters. We use full-time staff to work from these centralized hubs as well, creating employment. As well as this, we have swappable batteries. So instead of bringing the scooters back to a warehouse, charging them overnight and redistributing them the next day, we simply go out to the scooters on the streets and replace the dead battery packs. This is leaner from an operations perspective, it's greener, it's more ethical, and it ticks a lot of boxes for the local councils who are essentially the gatekeepers to winning business. Another thing to note is that we actually only use electric vehicles, a mixture of electric vans and electric cargo bikes to charge and redistribute our scooters. The second problem that we are trying to solve is the vehicle littering issues. So if you've ever seen scooter sharing schemes across Europe or in the States, it's likely that the scooters could be left anywhere. So a user is allowed to start a journey anywhere and end a journey anywhere. So yes, this has benefits from the user's perspective, but from a local authority's perspective, it's a massive headache. From when you look at other vulnerable road users or other pedestrians, it's a massive headache. They're unsightly, they cause trip hazards for elderly people or people with visual impairments. So we didn't want to do that. What we've done differently is we have virtual parking bays all over every city we operate in. Now, what that means is, like this picture, it's essentially a painted parking bay within it's a painted parking bay that the scooters have to start and end their journeys from. As well as this, we use GPS technology to ensure that the user ends their journey in these parking bays, avoiding the scooter littering problem. The third problem that we're solving is the lack of control that the local authorities have. A lot of our competitors are looking to scale into 50 plus markets per year. Now, with this level of scale, they can't give each local authority the time they need to ensure a successful scheme. So we've seen it in many cases. People that are trying to scale too quickly take the local authorities' views for granted. They go into a market, there's uproar, and they're kicked out within a week. This has happened time and time again when people try and scale too quickly. So what we operate is a sustainable growth model, which means we grow at a rate that we believe that we can give the councils the time they need to tailor the service to meet the transport needs of that specific local authority. So the way we do this, for example, would be through, say, our menu of operating models. So we will provide them with a list of operating options, and they can just choose from that list, and we can tailor the service to meet their specific needs. An example of this, we can say, what operating hours would you like? Would you like reduced operating hours? How would you like the scooters to be parked? Would you like the scooters to have a lock on them? And just tailoring it to see what they need to make sure that they're comfortable, that the trial is going to be a success. So, and we also scale we don't launch the full fleet as we launch in a market. So say we have a license for 500 scooters, we'll probably launch 100, and a few weeks later another 100, a few weeks later another 100, to sneak the scooters in without any bad press and keeping everyone happy. So this has actually been really, really huge, and I think was one of the keys to actually winning licenses across the UK. And then the last problem that we're trying to solve is rider safety. And I think this is at the core of our offering, and it's really strong part of our mobility done right ethos. We want to have the safest service in the world, and we're constantly trying new technology to do that. The first thing that we're doing is that we have ultra safe scooters. They're the safest scooters in the world, in my opinion. We operate reduced operating hours, so people can't come out of coppers on these things, or people can't ride or it's less likely that people will ride under the influence of alcohol or drugs in the middle of the night. We have slow speed zones, meaning that if there's areas of high footfall, we can actually reduce the speed again through our GPS technology. And we can also do the same and restrict areas that the local authority don't want us to enter. We also carry out rigorous roadworthiness testing on every single scooter every 2 to 3 days, every single time a battery is swapped, that is. So looking at our progress to date, in the last 5 months, we've had over 60,000 journeys on Zipp e-scooters, generated over 185,000 euro in revenue. We have over 25,000 customers, and we've raised over 1 million in seed funding to date. That 1 million will come from angel investors from Dublin to New York, including former Irish rugby captain Brian O'Driscoll. It includes a London-based VC, as well as Enterprise Ireland as well. So quite a mix of investors, and all adding value in their own ways. We've also grown our team from 1 to 17 people in the last 9 months. So that's where we've been, and where are we going? Well, we want to get a leading position in both the Irish and UK scooter sharing markets, and also get a foothold in mainland Europe. So let's dig into this in a little bit more detail. Looking at Ireland, it was announced that legislation for e-scooters is going to be coming out this summer. Only this week it was announced that e-scooter legislation is in the summer legislative programme, so that's coming along nicely. In the UK, obviously we've secured 3 contracts already, and we actually have 2 more launches in May and June, so we're really excited for them as well. Really looking forward to another launch. Then looking beyond that, we've signed 3 contracts with 3 different Polish local authorities, all 3 of which we are planning to launch this July. And then again, we're also talking to several local authorities and in advanced discussions with several local authorities in Portugal, again, with the aim of a July launch. So a very, very busy summer coming up. So really, really excited to start scaling into mainland Europe. I think the big question that's going to be asked is how. Like, how are we going to compete in Europe? The UK and Ireland is one thing, but scaling into Europe, a lot of people see it as a different beast. And a big question is, how are we going to do this? Well, essentially, we're going after the hidden gems. That's how we like to call it. In Europe, we're going after fundamentally different markets to our competition. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the average market size of most of our competitors, it ranges from about 550,000 at the smallest, right up until 1.9 million. As you can see, Zipp here are going after markets with an average size of around 300,000. And people would normally ask, well, why are you going after the smaller markets? Well, there's 260 million people living in European cities. There's only 89 cities in Europe with over 500,000 people. And there's 930 cities in Europe with less than 500,000 people. So as you can see, it's a much, much bigger market, and that's the one we want to go after. It's less competitive and it's bigger, as simple as that. The biggest question when we say we're going after smaller markets is, well, how are we going to be profitable in these smaller markets? Well, looking at our operating model, our centralized charging model, our swappable batteries, our sustainable growth, and our virtual docking model all contribute to stronger unit economics and early profitability. So looking at our financial summary then, last year we planned to launch 325 scooters. We achieved that. This year we're planning to launch just under 2,000 scooters. Next year, around 3,000 to 4,000 scooters. And in 2023, an additional 7,500 scooters. This will bring about revenues of around 29 million euro. So then on to the team. So Chris already gave a nice introduction, but I may as well go at it again. I'm a BCom graduate and previously worked in both asset management and corporate finance. And yeah, I was named Founder of the Year in 2021 and also listed in the Irish Independent's 30 Under 30. But it's not about me. Let's look at the rest of the team. If you look at the growth team, we recently hired Rui Paiva. Rui has previously led the expansion of Hive, which was FreeNow's scooter sharing company across Europe. He launched 20,000 scooters across 17 cities, across 7 countries in Europe. So phenomenal track record, and delighted to have him on board. Looking at finance, our CFO is Brian Maguire. He was previously a CFO for an Irish handheld technology company, as well as multiple startups and Irish family funds as well. Then on the operations side, it's led by Dave Maloney, who's our general manager for the UK and Ireland. Dave previously spent 23 years in IBM in business management and technology. So I could go into the rest of the team, but I don't think we have time, but a lot of heavy hitters in there as well. We've also got a different micromobility exits in the last 24 months and is a thought leader in the industry. We've also got Sean Flood, who previously founded Gotcha Mobility, worked on the mobility company, scaling it over 11 years before selling it last year. We've got Brian O'Driscoll, who's an investor and an ambassador to Zipp Mobility as well. I'm really excited to get him more involved with an announcement coming soon on the role he'll play in the Irish market. We've got Eileen Gleeson. She's a government affairs advisor of ours. She was previously the advisor to President McAleese when she was president, and also the former chair of Weber Shandwick. We've also got financial expertise with Mark O'Donovan and smart cities expertise with Francesco Pila. So now looking at our funding requirements. Well, our plan is to lead the Irish market, expand our business in the UK, as well as launch in 2 additional European cities. Looking at the investment terms, we're planning to raise €1 million at an 8 million pre-money valuation. And as of this morning, we've already achieved around 120,000 of that on the Spark platform, which went live yesterday. And now we plan to raise an additional 880,000 from Spark crowdfunding investors. We also have access to up to 2 million in asset-backed finance, which will help us purchase the vehicles and will help us scale. It's important to note that we are EIS qualified as well, and investors can claim 40% of their investment back in year 1. So that's really important to note as well. So a €10,000 investment would see a 4,000 income tax relief in that same year. Now, the exit opportunities. One thing that's happening in the industry is consolidation. It's already prevalent and accelerating. So we've seen Uber acquire a bike sharing Jump for 200 million. We saw Ford acquire a scooter sharing company, Spin, for 100 million. We saw Bird acquire Scoot for 25 million. We saw Bird acquire Cirque for plus 200 million. Hellbiz acquire Skip for 100 million. And the list goes on and on. Consolidation is very, very strong in the industry, and it's going to continue that way. So yeah, we would expect to be acquired in the next kind of 4 to 5 years, I'd imagine. So just to finish off, I suppose this is a unique and exclusive opportunity to invest in an early stage, high growth startup. We've got a very ambitious founders team with an exponential sector growth rates and significant market opportunity in Ireland, the UK and beyond. We've got a proven track record in securing exclusive licenses to operate internationally. We've demonstrated our ability to be profitable in the middle of the winter in the midst of a national lockdown. So we're really excited to see these numbers grow as we move into the summer months. Your investment will qualify for a 40% EIS tax relief, And it's also important to note that that will bring our 8 million valuation down to ballpark 4.8 million. So thank you very much for listening. And I now open the floor to any questions.
Charlie, thank you very much indeed. Great presentation, and I'm sure there are plenty of questions that are pouring in anyway. So if you'd like to perhaps unshare your screen, and we can all be kind of as near to life size as possible, and sure, we will get going. So Fergal, you've been collating a few of them. So do you want to get going first?
Yep. Hi everyone, and hi Charlie. So first question I have here is, on the 60K journeys that you've had so far, has there been any accidents? And also just another point on that is regarding the liability, the insurance. What happens if someone is injured or even more seriously kind of hurt while riding the scooters?
Yeah, sure. So very happy to say, touch wood, out of the 60,000 journeys we've had so far, we've had 0 accidents. So looking at scooter sharing in general, from an OECD report on micromobility safety, they compared the safety of electric scooters versus electric bikes, electric scooter versus regular push bikes. And they looked at how many accidents were happening per million journeys. The conclusion was that bikes and scooters, neither are more safe than the other. They're the exact same. So if you're looking at the perception of safety of electric scooters, they should be looked at the same as a regular push bike. So I just want to clear that up first. And the second thing that I would say regarding insurance, yes, we've got every insurance cover under the sun, but in terms of the rider liability, we have a third-party insurance cover with material damage up to $1 million and personal injury cover unlimited. And then from the personal injury side, we have cover of up to, I think it's around £60,000. So it's important to note as well that when a rider gets on, they sign a rider's agreement, essentially saying that, you know, they take liability for their own journey, but third-party material or third-party injury caused is all covered.
Very good.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks.
Question in from Noel. How much runway are you expecting the 400K to last, and what are your plans for future fundraising?
So our burn right now, well, it all depends on how many scooters we launch. So we will be raising a full $1 million in this round, and that $1 million will give us approximately, 14 months of runway, I would imagine. Will bring us right up to the end of 2022. Our burn will be significantly lower once we launch in these additional markets. As I said, we were actually cash positive in every market we were operating in the UK in December in the middle of a lockdown. So we are very, very excited on a per unit basis for each of our schemes to be cash positive. So then it just comes down to the central costs and the central burn rate. And obviously this will go down and down as we launch in more markets. So yeah, we would fully expect to have runway to the end of 2022. But that being said, we're close to the end of 2022. We do plan on raising a Series A though, Q1 next year, maybe even before, but we'll be working on that as soon as we close this investment round.
Very good. Sorry, before you go into your question, Fergal, probably most people have found out the Q&A session on the bottom of your screen. So that's where we'd like all the questions to be put, please, rather than the chat. So if you could put your questions into the Q&A, we'll get through them a little bit more expeditiously as well. So Fergal, over to you again.
So a question on the, I suppose, the state of play here in Dublin and in Ireland in general. What's the likelihood of you getting the license? How do you propose doing that? Kind of a little bit of an update on the Irish side of things.
Yeah, so look, I think I just want to be clear that there's going to be probably a fair amount of competitors looking at this. So there's only so much detail I can go into on a public webinar. What I would say is that we have been building local relationships with all the local authorities across Ireland that we plan on launching in over the last 2 years. We're Dublin based, we tick that box. We have international experience. We employ full-time staff in every market we enter. We already employ 10 people here in Dublin. So I think there's a lot going for us, but we're not resting on our laurels. There's a huge amount that we're doing right now in the background that I'm struggling here to go into because there's so much detail I can't give you. It's going to be a huge amount of announcements on commercial partnerships that we're having that will really be, will have synergies when it comes to winning the Dublin license. And you know, Dublin's going to be broken up into likely 3 or 4 licenses. Looks like all different local authorities are going to go to tender separately. But we've been building those relationships for years. I've been working on this since 2018 and had regular, you know, that's all I can really say on it right now. But I'm very confident that we are best positioned to win all the Dublin licenses. As I said, we don't want to get a foothold in the Irish market. We don't want to have a presence in Ireland. We absolutely plan on dominating the Irish market as well as the rest of the UK.
Very good. Okay, great answer. Thanks, Charlie. There's a couple of people who've asked to see a various slide or the P&L. You can access those through the site. There's a tab on the Zipp campaign that will have some of the documentation there. If you'd like any further, more detailed documentation than that's already there, please get in touch with us, and we can either put you in touch with Charlie or maybe even be able to help you directly anyway ourselves. But there's a question in from James, Charlie, that how will you manage vandalism and theft? Stationless bikes are at least tethered, so leaving scooters on the street overnight can lead to a lot of interference. What's
yeah, like, you know, we launched on a Halloween night, so it was a great start. It was a great learning curve. So, you know, we've seen everything. We've seen, you know, scooters. People have tried to throw scooters into a river. People have tried to light them on fire. These things are absolute beasts. They're made with aircraft grade aluminium. Every single part is swappable. You know, even though, and we've had, you know, scooters stolen as well, but every single time we've been able to retrieve the scooter, first of all, and we've been able to repair the scooter. And every single scooter that we purchased back in the summer is still on the street. Not one scooter is out of action. So I think that's really, really important. It's like the idea that you can have a broomstick that lasts 50 years if you keep replacing the handle and the brush. And that's the same here. You know, the scooters are going to last a very, very long time. And yeah, we're really, really happy with that. Like, we've seen vandalism, of course, but it's a feature, but it's not a problem.
Okay, very good.
Brilliant. A question here just regarding kind of future valuation. If you meet your revenue expectations over the next 3 years, Charlie, what do you perceive the valuation will be at that stage? Say,
yeah. So
3 to 5 years, kind of. What's your view?
Yeah, like I think it's pretty clear for us. I think, you know, based on our assumptions of growth, okay, we'll probably need a Series A, potentially a Series B. But with this idea of early profitability, we want to be bankable or self-sufficient as soon as possible. So we're not going to be a company that goes through 8 or 9 different funding rounds. Dilution will be once or twice. But if we look at the valuation, I think, you know, the number of scooters we plan to launch are conservative enough. If we achieve these, let's just go off, like, you know, back of the envelope figures here: 30 million revenue, 20% gross or 20% profit before tax, which we're planning on achieving conservatively. That would be 6 million. 12x multiple on that, which we again see as very achievable. That's 72 million in 3 years' time. So 8 million in that context is still a huge amount of growth potential for us. And we look even to 5 years, you know, we're expecting to hit, you know, hundreds of million valuation sooner than most people would perceive us to.
Very good, excellent. So if you sorry, no, that's a similar question there. Sorry. Do you have one there? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a quick one here just from Fionn. Yes, if the round overfunds and we're in a stage of overfunding, there is no dilution. So Zipp will offer more shares at the same valuation. So
exactly. Yeah,
everything
that's
is level playing field.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's important to know. Like, you know, with our target there, I think I saw a question pop up there. You know, our target is 400,000, and we've seen many campaigns on the Spark platform hit double or triple that. We're raising 1 million, and we have a few privates lined up that have, you know, are pretty much ready to go, and as well as that, the Spark, we expect the Spark to do much better than 400,000. So yeah, we're raising 1 million.
Excellent. And just with Luna, can you give us a bit of background on the partnership with Luna and what role they're playing going forward and currently?
Yeah, for sure. So Luna Systems is a a technology company that provide a couple of different things, one being centimeter level positioning technology, and the other is machine vision. Okay, so the centimeter level positioning technology is a really interesting one. So right now, GPS is what we use. GPS is accurate to the nearest, 5 to 10 meters. So if someone parks, we have to make the parking bays on the back end of our system slightly bigger than the actual parking bays. What Luna Systems is centimeter level positioning. So it's actually accurate to the nearest 1 to 5 centimeters. So if a scooter is 1 or 2 centimeters outside of a parking bay, we'll get an alert. So it's just the most accurate parking technology in the world, in my opinion. And then as well as that, they provide machine vision. So machine vision would be things like pedestrian counting. So say, for example, you enter an area with high footfall. If it, footfall equals X, they might say, okay, let's slow the scooter down to, a slower speed. It also can monitor if someone's riding on the footpath or riding on the road. Scooters aren't going to be allowed, they won't be permitted on the footpath. So this will just give us more data, it'll give the council more data, things like that. So yeah, we've been working with them. I've known the guys for about 1.5 years now, a little bit longer, 2 years, I'd say, and which is crazy. But yeah, so we've signed a partnership with them. We've got a few trials coming up with them, some in Ireland, some in the UK, and yeah, that's all I can say about it right now. But they're kind of in a fairly early stage, but hopefully, hopefully all things go well and they can, scale.
Very good. You stated that your competitors are making losses. What makes you more profitable, given it seems you probably have a higher cost with your business model, or maybe you don't actually, Charlie? Maybe you can explain that.
Yeah, no, we've got a much lower cost with our business model. So, with a huge amount of scale comes you start to lose cost efficiency. And so I think that's one thing, little things, and it sounds like small things, going in, being able to negotiate rates, being able to negotiate, not just picking the first thing that comes up, going with just looking at your costs and trying to keep them low. That in itself plays a huge part. But let's look at the actual operations of the business. Okay, first of all, the swappable batteries. We don't need a lorry to go out and collect 100 scooters and bring them back to the warehouse and charge them, and another lorry and another person to bring them back out. We can have one guy going around for a few hours on an electric cargo bike, cycling around, just throwing batteries in scooters. So that is one element that makes us quite cost efficient. Another one is the centralized charging model as well. So the centralized charging model, it sounds expensive because you've got a warehouse and everything, but if you use independent contractors, you pay them per charge. Okay, so we've seen scooter sharing companies pay as high as $10, $20 per charge, where we're at like $150 per charge or less. So, from a gross margin perspective, we've seen some of our competitors have gross margins of around 20%, and we're looking to have, profit before tax of around 20%. So it is far, far leaner the way we're doing it. And I think that's really important to note.
Very good.
Brilliant. Very good question here from Ronan. Does senior management have skin in the game across your team? And I suppose you have quite a large team already, which is fantastic, and some well-known investors, and a few questions coming in directly about Brian O'Driscoll, which is great. But in terms of senior management, do they have
yeah, so it depends on what you call skin in the game. If we've got an ESOP set up or setting up, which will obviously be an element of, hopefully will be an incentive for a company that's hoping to scale at the level we are. And then the second side of that is yes, some of our senior management were actually investors in the seed round. So yeah, that's all I can say on that right now.
Brilliant.
Okay, what is your best marketing channel to get your name out there then, Charlie?
So the best marketing channel, I suppose, it's a really interesting one. People talk about the customer acquisition cost, and it's one thing that's, scooter sharing operators differ on a lot of things and have different views on a lot of things. But one thing that everyone can agree on is that the customer acquisition cost is ridiculously low, close to zero. And the reason for that is because, if I put down 1,000 scooters here in Dublin, people would be and all you need is a sticker on it to say, scan me or something like that. People will get on due to curiosity. So what you see when you launch a scooter sharing scheme is what's known as a hype curve. So people are so curious about this service that the ridership is actually really, really high. It's not something that's gradual increase in ridership. Sign-ups are extremely high at the very start because people are so curious. Then you've got the customers on the platform, and then it's about keeping them. Now, what we're doing right now is we're working to kind of dig into the analytics, who's used the scooter once, who's used the scooter, who uses it once a week, who was using it regularly and stopped using it, categorizing users and sending out specific promotional campaigns to hit those people. So I think that's important, and we can target them through app or we can target them through email. So that's probably the angle we're going down now. I think right now for us, social media and our website, a lot of that is about brand, but actual marketing and actual engagement is more about in-app and email marketing for now.
Very good. Very good.
Brilliant. Good question here as well from a point of view, the city radius. So what do you imagine the radius being, and can you see maybe schools using them, and obviously that brings another question. What is the requirement as a user? What's the age requirement, etc. And also the distance that it will be covered or allowed to be covered by the scooters.
So I might need your help, Fergal, because there was a few parts to that one. So just the first part, the radius. Are we talking about the radius of the range of the scooter?
Yes, and where you can get them. How far out can people get them out in in Sandyford, Castleknock? What areas are you looking to cover here?
So one thing that we actually specialize in is this, with this centralized charger model. Okay, we want to get as many satellite towns into this centralized charger model as possible. Okay, so say for example, in one of the places in the UK we operate, Buckinghamshire, we operate one warehouse and we have two different markets, Aylesbury and High Wycombe, both using the same warehouse. So obviously you're reducing the operational cost. So it's actually in our interest to go into as many areas as possible. Say in the Dublin context, one scheme would work for all of Dublin. So we'd have, in that context, it would work for all of Dublin. I'm not sure on terms of kilometre radius, but we'd be able to manage all of Dublin. In terms of the range of the scooter, it's about 50 kilometres. Well, the manufacturer will tell you that it's probably closer to 40 on full battery. So that's the range. Will school children be able to use them? Most likely not. In the UK, there's a requirement that you have to have a provisional driver's license to use the service. We actually use facial recognition technology. Someone takes a picture of their driver's license and then they take a selfie with the driver's license, and that facial recognition technology actually says yes, you are able to use the service, or no, you're not.
They can unlock it.
And it takes around 15 seconds. Now, in mainland Europe, that's not really the case. Sometimes it's just tick box. Sometimes they say the minimum age is 14. Sometimes it's 16. Sometimes it's 18. So we're going to have to wait and see how the local authority or how the country legislates for it here. But I would imagine it'll either be 16 or 18.
Very good. Listen, we've had loads of questions flooding into the Q&A, so we can't go through them all, unfortunately. But as always, we'll send these questions on to Charlie, and Charlie will tap up an answer, and we'll get it put back onto the site. So I'll just conclude with this last one here, then, if I may, then, Charlie. Do you have any stats on repeat usage?
Let me come back to you on that. We have a huge amount. So one thing that we saw when we saw this hype curve was really interesting. We saw a huge amount of people use the service at the start, and then a certain element of those people say, oh, this is actually very practical. Now, some users drop off and they were just using it for the novelty, but some start using it for the commute. So we started seeing usage really, really high from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So you can tell like they're just using it for the crack. And then what we started to see was way more rides from 6:30, 7, 7:30, 8, and the same at rush hours. So rush hours and lunchtime are now our busiest hours. So it's important to note that that is a big shift that's happened, and now we're seeing people actually regularly commuting. Let me come back to you on the stats. We do have stats on, what percentage of our users use it regularly and stuff like that. So happy to come back to you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, well, listen, let's conclude there, because otherwise we'll be here until the early hours of the morning. So listen, thank you very much, Charlie. Fantastic presentation, and it's great to see you doing so well, and that there's a good traction in the campaign already, even though it's only been up and running kind of a couple of hours, really. So guys, just to reconfirm that if you would like to invest, please just go onto the site, go onto the Zipp platform, onto the Zipp campaign, and press invest now, and away you go. It's very, very simple. And the same again, if you'd like to find out a little bit more information, you can tap a question into the discussion channel there, and Charlie will answer that in due course as well. So I hope everybody got a fair hearing, and everybody got a lot of their questions asked. But thanks very much indeed for everybody, and we're sending all of the information around very soon. So thanks very much for attending, and we'll see you soon. Thanks now. Bye-bye.
Thanks a million, guys.